Hey everybody! So thank you for joining me this Friday evening. You could be doing a lot of things, but if you're here with me, I do appreciate it every single time that everybody gets to come on and follow the show and kind of supports me in what I'm doing. So I'm always grateful for you guys taking the time out of your busy day to join me and kind of help me inspire people and inspire myself just by doing this every day. So thank you guys so much for watching and interacting and everything that you guys do because you without you this show and the things that go on would not be able to happen. So thank you guys so much. So let me go ahead and start and get the particulars out of the way for the evening like we always do. So guys, if this is your first time watching the show, do us a favor. If you're watching, we're streaming live on multiple platforms. So we're streaming live on YouTube. So if you're watching it on YouTube, you can check us out on our page, on our channel there at the Made from Scratch broadcast. Do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe button. We are trying to build our viewership there, and then hit the notification buttons. It'll let you know whenever we go live or whenever we upload new content for you guys to watch. So thank you so much for watching there. And then you can also drop in the comments there and we can pull them up on screen and interact with them. So thank you guys so much there. And then we're also streaming live on our Facebook page. So check us out on our Facebook page at Made from Scratch Broadcast there. Again, thank you so much for following. And we're also streaming on our my Facebook profile, so you can check it out there as well. Again, you can drop in the comments and we can interact and pull them up. And then if you have any questions for tonight's guest, I can always see if we can have them answer. So also streaming live via Periscope on Twitter. So check us out there at MFSB Live there. Same sort of deal. Drop it down in the comments. We can pull it up, interact, that sort of thing. And then also we are streaming live on LinkedIn. So guys, if you're on LinkedIn, drop in the comments. I am monitoring those. And, any questions or any comments you guys have, again, we'll pull them up there. So, thank you so much. And then check out our website. Go to www.madefromscratchpodcast.com, and you can go find some of our past episodes. I'm constantly trying to update it with past episodes. You can also check out our podcast there. So we do change this into a podcast form. So if you want to listen to it, the link's there. You can also find it on you can also find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Radio Cast, Breaker. There's streams to multiple platforms there. And then you can also check out our internet radio station where we do play music and we also play past episodes of the broadcast. So thank you guys so much. And now that we got all the particulars out of the way, let's go ahead and start about this evening's guest. So he's an award-winning digital thought leader and author. He's a distinguished Toastmaster, which that's awesome. I'm trying to get into Toastmasters myself, a keynote speaker, former partner and chief operating officer of a multi-million-dollar retail company. And he's also sought after lifestyle mentor and executive performance coach. But on top of that, he's a super dad, dating his wife. He's led by examples of living and contagious personality. And, he's on a mission to do something that I love, and he's trying to positively impact 1 million role models around, around the globe to lead a financially fit life through education, encouragement, and a community. So, again, really cool guy. I love the fact that he's also really about positive mindset and trying to help people change their lives. So guys, do me a favor and welcome Dai Manuel to the show.
Hey. I love it. So cool. Thanks for the intro.
Awesome.
That was awesome.
No problem at all. So thank you for joining us. So taking the time out of your busy schedule, because I know you're a man on the go. So let's go ahead and start by first kind of let me ask you, how did you actually start your journey into, first of all, growing a positive mindset, and then of course your lifestyle about fitness and that sort of thing? So how did all of that manifest? How did all that really start?
Oh man, let's just go right in.
Right off the bat, right?
There's no warm up here. There's no holding hands. We're going for the kids.
Right. That's it.
Well, listen, I I've been in the fitness and wellness lifestyle, a healthy living space. Let's just call it a vertical, right? I've been
There you go.
in that space for, this is like my 25th year. That's all, like, it's crazy, right? Like when I think about it, I'm 43 now. I'll be 44 in the fall. I've been doing this a long time. Pretty much my entire adult life, I've been working and helping people with transformations, whether it be in their lives and their businesses. It's usually both. But I didn't come to it naturally. A lot of people, when they meet people that are in specifically the fitness industry, or even in like the nutritionary space, and that we have a presumption. And I apologize if I'm being a bit too presumptive here and putting words or ideas in other people's heads. I'm just talking in a generality, of course, but from my own personal experience, because I've been on both sides of the fence. And what I mean by this is, usually when we meet somebody in the fitness space, our initial gut instinct or presumption of that individual is that they must have always been into fitness. You meet someone that's really healthy, really fit. We're always like, whoa, well, that's impressive. They must be an athlete. They must have played sports all their life. Like they're just never an idea that they could have been on the opposite side. And I'd like to let people know, I did not come to fitness nor healthy living naturally. Okay. I, as a teenager, from the age of 9 to 14, I was medically classified. And the only reason I say medically classified, because I remember the day I went to the doctor's office with my mom, and I was probably about 13, almost 14. And the doctor pulls my mom aside and says, Betty Ann, your son is morbidly obese.
Oh, wow.
I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't know what morbidly meant. Like, what's morbid? What's obese? Like, I was like, I don't understand that. So what does that mean? And just to get it right out there, based on body mass index, because a lot of people are familiar with that, certain age, certain height, depending on your gender, there's a certain ideal body weight. They call it your healthy body weight. I was way over that. At the age of 14. And, I was living the typical stigmas and what we would consider cliche now, but realize I'm going back in time now. This is almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And back then, childhood obesity was not what it is now.
Yes.
I was one of 2 kids in my entire school that was in that state of unhealth. So, there was a lot of pressure there. Social pressure, social anxiety as well. And the interesting thing is, there's very little images of me. There's, in fact, I know of two pictures of me in that state of unhealth, because I shied away from cameras. I didn't often attend parties. I would be the kid that would always make an excuse so we didn't have to do phys ed, because I didn't want to change in front of the other kids. Because kids are mean. Like they can be mean, but the teenagers can be cruel. And it's a hard place to be when you're in that state, and it was just really hard. Yeah. I'm sure you can relate to this. Like we've gone through challenges, especially as kids, right? Like we have these experiences and they forever stick with us. And, at age 14, I remember one morning, and it was actually mid-morning, I was having a shower at my dad's place. My parents separated when I was 9 and eventually divorced. And so we would spend, every other weekend at my dad's place. And I remember this one weekend we're at my dad's, and he usually would just let us do our own thing. And then we'd try to go out and maybe do something on Saturday afternoon. And but this day we were rushed. He was pressing us because we had somewhere else to go. And so I got in the shower, but I used to have a trick. And this is my favorite trick, was if I was going to have a shower, I'd stand there extra long, make sure it's extra hot, because then the mirror would be totally fogged up, covered in condensation, so I wouldn't have to look at myself. I wouldn't have to see reflection. Just that the depression I felt, and the isolation and the sadness, and just, oh gosh, it was a really hard place psychologically and emotionally. I'm a teen, just prepubescent, and just puberty starting to kick in. You can just imagine, right? Like it was just
you're trying to figure out who you are. I mean, gosh, that's a tough time, right?
Well, it is a tough time, but I also had people that
made it rough, right?
Well, and they also give you a label, right? Like it's very easy to try to put people in a box and tick that little box as well and say, oh, this is who this person is, and maybe this is who they'll always be. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. And I came to a point where, to be quite honest, I was more afraid of the idea of not changing than I was of the idea of actually changing. because the idea of not changing, it was either I'm going to live like this and I don't think things are going to get better, because I already know over the last 5 years they haven't got better. In fact, they've been getting worse. Or I could do something different. I could take it upon myself to figure out, well, how do I rectify this? How do I start to make these changes? And I joke with my kids because, they don't quite get it, but I was like, I went to the library and I got some books out. I remember getting some books on fitness, getting some books on nutrition.
Right.
I mean, I'm older than Google. Okay. And my kids still laugh at that.
Right.
But that's what you had to do. Right.
Yeah. You kind of got to, I mean, my kids are the same way. So when you mention something like the Dewey Decimal System to them, it's like, right? You're like,
love it.
Yeah, you just like, oh wow, okay, that's insane.
They don't get it, right? And so here I was, right? And I was realizing I wanted to make this change, but I chose that I wanted to make it because I was I had some suicidal thoughts. I had some depression. I had a lot of anxiety around my physicality, really low self-esteem. So, and I say these are almost cliche, but it's true. It's a state of mind. And I was not in a positive place. But I recognized, well, I can either just stay here and accept it, or that other idea that I had in my head, well, that really scares me. So what else is my option? Well, my option is do something different, literally just do something different than I've been doing for the last 5 years, because I believed that it just couldn't get any worse. As long as I was doing something proactive to facilitate some changes. And man, I tell people this and they're like, well, what did you do? Expecting me to drop this nugget of wisdom that's like this magic pill. It took me 20 months. All right. Like over a year and a half of consistent effort.
Yeah.
This means I was moving every day with purpose. A lot of it was mountain biking or walking. Like I wasn't doing anything super intense. I wasn't playing sports. I wasn't even going to a gym yet. I was just active. And then on top of that, I started watching what I was eating. I stopped eating a lot of the foods that were very poor in nutrition, but very high in calories. This nutrition, just the foods that we tend to really like often are very poor in nutritionary value, right? And I was living that because that was what would provide me comfort. Like we have certain ways of distracting ourselves or providing ourselves with instant gratification. And for me, it was playing video games, watching movies, and eating foods that were not conducive with the lifestyle that I was wanting to be and that person I was wanting to become. And so I just started to change things. And interesting enough, as I went through that process, people took notice, because it was obvious that I was making some positive changes. And what's super interesting is people see that happening and they're like, wow, that's impressive. That's really neat. Well, here's a team that's making some significant shifts. Like he's really changing, because I started to become a bit more confident in myself. I started to realize that I can do this. I had belief in myself, which is something very new to myself at that time. Yeah. And people started to ask me questions and started asking me my advice or my help. And this was brand new to me. I mean, here's people taking notice of me.
Yeah.
And I felt really good. I got to help them. And I loved it. And that got me excited. That was the coaching or mentorship bug that bit me back when I was 17. And ever since then, I've been doing that. I've been helping others with similar challenges. And it's been a lifelong just purpose for me,
Yeah. So did you ever, whenever you start making changes, right, especially at that young of age, did you ever get any of these questions like, hey, is something wrong with you? Or are you okay? That sort of thing, where people are like, okay, that might not have seen you for a while. And they see you losing weight and they see you, they don't know that you're doing all these things in the background, that you're being very active and that sort of thing. So when they see you again, they go, hey, something wrong? Are you okay? You look like you've lost weight. Instantly it goes to like, maybe, there's something wrong mentally or that sort of thing. Instead of you taking the aspect of, I've taken a positive role in change in my life. So, because I feel that people have a tendency to default to that for some reason, the negative aspect, before they even think about not knowing what your situation was and that sort of thing. So, I always ask people that. I said, so, how do you feel about that when somebody approaches you and they tell you these sort of things, You
know what? That's when I really reflect on it, it was, I had a very close network of friends, but obviously, I came from a smaller town outside of Toronto, Ontario, and I think there was in our whole high school maybe 11 or 1200 students. So,
Oh,
in
okay.
my grade, there was, I think, only 3 classes of about 30 kids, maybe 100 to 150 students in grade 9. Like, it wasn't a huge amount. Maybe there was a bit more than that, but I don't really recall. But it was not so much that I couldn't completely just sort of sift into the background.
Yeah.
Like, I was
Right.
still, it was recognized that I was making some changes, but I think because of lack of awareness around, I mean, today, let's be fair, our kids are bombarded with marketing all the time, and messages, media, and just images and ideas, and the amount of information they process, it baffles me, because I know when I was a kid like that, I mean, I remember the old modem, whatever it was, X amount of bytes, and I'd be waiting for, an hour for a website to load, like, and I just, we didn't know enough, so no one had come to me and say, "Hey, are you sick?" or anything like that, because we didn't have any point of reference. We didn't have that kind of experience or awareness, even around cancer and some other illnesses, right? So
Yeah.
it was presumed that, wow, you're doing something here, because you're losing weight. People were like, wow, like really surprised, but in a positive way. And I actually, that fueled me. It was like, yeah, wow,
Yeah.
I'm working this. And because to me, that was just an acknowledgement that I was making changes and that it was working. And
Yeah. That.
yeah. So, anyways, that's just
Yeah.
a thought on
But
that.
yeah, but that's awesome though, right? So that you can
Yeah.
actually you felt you had that close knit kind of community, so you couldn't just hide in the ways of, and people see you every day and they know something's going on, and they see how much you're working and that sort of thing. So that's awesome that you actually got to go through that, because there's, like you said, nowadays, I mean, uh, our kids are so inundated with so much stuff.
Mm.
They have to process so many things, so nothing ever gets to be hidden anymore, because everything usually ends up on social media. So,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
you
It's
know,
wild, huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's insane. But that's great that you did that, and then that you did at such a young age. That's
Mm.
what kind of that's what always kind of interests me a lot. That when people tend to find that calling, that sort of thing, at a very young age,
Mm.
how much it can guide them going forward in life.
Mm.
Because again, here's people now. Here we are in our 40s. There's people now who still haven't figured out
Mm.
what purpose is, what their why is, and it's kind of the same sort of thing that people who've even lived in a life of structure, like, so they go to college, and yet by their third year or fourth year, or their third year in college, they're going, well, I'm still figuring out my major.
Mm.
And so you're like, you would hopefully at some point have that sort of guidance to know where you're supposed to be going or what you're kind of doing. And then I get it that, for some people, it takes time to find that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I always marvel at the people who can find it at such a young age, because again, I think that's where you see a lot of people um, rise, and you start seeing their talents and their genius and the things that they spread and share with people, that kind of really makes impact. A lot of, I equate it to like music. A lot of good music, if you go look at a lot of the people who we call like geniuses and legends, look at
Mm.
the ages they start doing this stuff. So they start doing this at age 13, 14, and then by the time they're 17 or 18, 19 years old, they're already, you know, either getting to be a celebrity, or they've been a celebrity, and they create all this wonderful stuff at such a young age. And
Mm.
um, and it kind of guides them for the rest of their life. So that's awesome that you found that out. Such a, you did have to go to adversity though to figure it out.
Well,
You
think
know,
about how we learn. Like, we often learn through contrasts, right?
yeah,
Like, think about, how do we appreciate hot? Well, you got to experience cold. How do you understand spicy? Well, you have to also understand bland. Like, it's like, we
yeah,
do learn in contrast, because it gives us perspective. And it was interesting having the perspective of being very unhealthy, being unfit, dealing with the daily aches and pains that accompanied that state of unhealth. And that was my life. I was living that. And it gets to a certain point in our lives where sometimes we lose perspective. And what I mean by that is a lot of the people that I tend to work with at times, they're they beat up on themselves a lot,
Yeah.
but their normal life now, they've been in a state of unhealth. They've been in a state of being unhappy for so long that's become the new normal. And they forget what it was like to maybe wake up in the morning and actually feel like you had a good night's sleep, so you feel like you got energy to tackle the day, or that you feel accomplished because you were able to get a couple of those things on your list that day off the list.
Yeah.
Like there's just these little things. They're small little nuances, but these nuances are ultimately what gives the color to our life, and if we're working with a limited palette, we're not going to have as colorful of as a life. And a lot of that is reflective of our choices. Like I used to point fingers, and I'll be honest, like, especially as a kid, I was a little bit, I could get angry sometimes. And I remember taking it out on my brother, who was my younger brother. I just remember us fighting, my frustrations and not being able to communicate with my words, but rather I would just communicate with my fists, and I get angry. I'd be upset, and some of the people that you should love the most were often taking the brunt of me, or the worst, getting the worst of me, rather than they should have been getting the best of me. And there's these things that I recognized in myself, and I wanted to see them change, because I wanted to change. I wanted to be happier. I wanted to experience more happiness, and the only way to do that was to literally just own up and make some changes. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I also knew it would be worth it. And I think many of us get to that point in our lives. Sometimes it comes right away, but sometimes it does have to get worse before it'll get better. I mean, look at the situation we're in now with COVID, right? Like, exactly. Are we out of it yet? No. Is it going to get worse again? It may. We may have a second or a third wave. Who knows? Like we don't know, but we can't sit here and be fearful of the unknown.
No.
No.
Kind of like what you're talking about. We do all have to, we do have to have let's start talking about what you kind of coach about. So let's say, like, you're in your coaching, you like to talk about the 5 F's. So one of the things that you talk about is faith. I'm a big believer in faith. So kind of walk us through what the 5 F's are, and how did you get into coaching? What was I know you started picking up that bug at such a young age. So what really drove you though into like wanting to go out and start helping people?
Well, I loved fitness, because fitness became very important to me because it helped me through some tough times. I felt a lot better after a workout, almost instantaneously. Yeah. And I always say this because, when we think about the feeling of regret, it's often attached with feelings of guilt, sometimes shame, sometimes blame, negative self-beliefs about ourselves. Like, regret's a very debilitating feeling, and unfortunately we also feel that regret, it doesn't involve change. Like, you can't go back, right? We can't go back and change things. So there's this deep feeling of loss or lost opportunity. And there's one thing I noticed, and that was whenever I work out, at the end of the day, I never regretted the fact that I worked out. And you got to realize this. We have lots of things in our lives, and at the end of the day, if you've done those things, have you ever thought like anything that's positive for us, something that's good for us? We don't sit down at the end of the day and say, "Geesh, I really regret doing that thing that was good for me." I really regret eating that salad for lunch. We don't, and yet, so we know this. We know that doing these things, they don't cause that emotion in us. And in fact, it causes the opposite. Right. And so when you develop that connection with some of the things that we do, you start to have an emotional connection to that. And that can be a very bright light on a dark path. And it's very powerful. But we have to learn how to channel that and get into that flow. And sometimes it can be really challenging, and this is where the mindset piece is critical. It's where everything starts. And in fact, I think it's also where everything ends,
Exactly. Yes.
That muscle between the ears, unfortunately, doesn't always get as much conditioning as it should. And I'm guilty of this too. I've had waves in my life, even in my adult life. After making those changes, I still went back to being unhealthy at times, but I always knew because I made the change once, I could make it again.
There you go. Right.
And sometimes you just have to be able to see other people succeed because we see them succeed and we're like, okay, well, they can do it. I can do it,
right.
because it's been done.
Yeah. So how, I mean, it goes back to how many times you get knocked down, you're going to get back up and do it over and over again. So, and I always tell people, nothing is finite in what you want to create as a person. Nothing is definite in the way that you want to develop as a person. You have to reinvent yourself as many times as possible to become the person that you want to be. So
That's right.
so you just, if you fail that first time at doing fitness, okay, guess what, you can try again tomorrow, you can try again in a week, but you have to keep trying. So I think it was Thomas Edison when they asked him about inventing the light bulb.
Mhm.
Somebody said, well, how did you feel after you failed 10,000 times before you got it right? And he goes, no, 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 you got it wrong. He goes, I had 10,000 different learning experiences before I figured it out. So it's the same thing with what you're doing in life, whether you want to commit and do changes. There's no real, right answer. There's not a set in stone way that everybody can do it, because I think I think that's why, like, even lifestyle coaching, for some people, certain coaches work a different way and can resonate with people, and certain other ones, they just can't reach that person. So when they go to somebody else and they find the right voice in their ear and it connects in between that muscle there, those people really start to blossom and take off. So, I always tell everybody, just because it hasn't clicked for you yet doesn't mean it won't. You just got to keep looking for it, my friend. And again, I always talk about, mental health a lot. I have a separate podcast I do on mental health, but here's the whole thing, right? Apart from doing the physical part of life, where people sometimes can even, they'll find it as an escape, or they'll put a lot of time into working their body, but yet, like you said, the greatest muscle in their body, in the human body, they won't even take the time to work on it just a little bit. I think you have to have kind of a balance of both. So I always tell people, if you're going to start doing changes, there's a lot of ways to start. But at some point, try to incorporate a mental health wellness program as well. And that goes down to do certain things, whatever kind of gives you that positive aspect in life, whether it's yoga or meditation or, even affirmations. There's all kinds of things that you can do, and resources, reading, whatever it is to find to help you get in that right mindset. So I really push that a lot.
No, I think you're spot on, and to sort of get back to that question about the F's. I'm someone that always enjoyed writing and reading. Like reading classics, like literature, and that was just always a passion. I really got into that in my 20s, and and it was funny, in my teens, no, not interested at all. But then I got to 18, 19, and something happened. I just picked up a book, started reading it, and next thing you know, I just really enjoyed reading. But it was different because I got out of high school, and now I got to choose the books I wanted to read. And so that was different because now I could go to the direction where I had interests, and so there was something really nice about that, and I really found certain books that I enjoyed, and and that changes our perspective too. That's a direct influence. Whatever inputs are going in, it will influence the outputs, and this is what mindset conditioning can do for us. There's neuroplasticity. Neuroscience has proven that our brains is very malleable. We can reprogram ourselves to have new habits, and we can literally override the old ones. I didn't say we can, make them obsolete. They're always going to be there, but we can make the new dominant ones more in alignment with the life that we want to be living and the goals we want to be achieving. And what I noticed after being in the fitness space for such a long time was I kept dealing with certain types of people, and actually a whole array of people, to the point that my wife and we recognized, as I was working in the fitness industry, specifically selling fitness equipment, and I was still doing a lot of coaching of individuals, but not as much as I used to when I first got into the industry, because again, now I was working in a different capacity, building a company, and the time just wasn't there to do one-on-one coaching and support. But I still wanted to support people and help them. And so we recognized that there was a good chunk of people that were out there that were intimidated by the idea of going to a gym, or intimidated by the idea of even going to a gym class, like a class, even a spin class or a CrossFit class, or any class specifically. Because, and I laugh, but this is not to be mean, but I laugh because I used to hear people tell me, you know what, I know you love CrossFit, Dai. I'm going to try it one day, but I'm going to try it when I'm a little fitter. and I always used to laugh at that, because I was like, what? Wait a minute. Did you hear what you just said? You know, but I used to hear this all the time. And what I started to realize is that there's a lot of different habits that people have. And when I say habits, it's actually, if you have an excuse and use it more than once, I hate to tell you, but that's just a bad habit in disguise. Okay? That's all it is. If you're using the excuse more than once, realize there's a habit there now.
Yeah.
And I encourage you to challenge that habit if you want to see it change. And so what my wife and I started to do was host these free Sunday Fun Day workouts. And we would do it in the back of one of the retail stores in the chain. And it was a functional fitness area, lots of space. And we'd invite people to come and train with us for free, no cost. They didn't have to buy any equipment. They didn't have to do anything. All they had to do was show up with a positive attitude. That was their only requirement, you know, to welcome them in. And so people would come, and it kept growing. People kept inviting their other friends because they were having such a positive experience. All of a sudden, they realized that, whoa, this fitness thing, I can do it. And I enjoy it. And so we had teenagers all the way up to people in their 70s. Like, we had the whole spectrum, man. It was awesome. We had big people,
incredible.
We had young people, we had every level. And it was remarkable, because everybody was coming together to support each other as a community. And we get a little sweat on, you know, and then at the end of it, we'd celebrate one another and say, yeah, we did this. You know, it wasn't this idea of just do it. It was like, no, we're celebrating the fact that we just did it. We already accomplished it. We got it done, and we celebrated that. And this was ultimately, I say this in the most loving way possible, but it was like, this was my petri dish. You know, it was my experiment, my lab for testing the way I coach people, the way I mentor people, the way I was able to either motivate or inspire or educate or just simply support. And I loved it. And so from that, came the basic elements of my book, The Whole Life Fitness Manifesto, which is simply a 28-day commitment that somebody makes to themselves, that they'll commit 2% of every 24 hours. That's only 30 minutes a day to their self-care. Okay, 30 minutes a day for 28 days. You commit that you are going to look after your body, your mind, and your spirit for 30 minutes. And this is you time. This is selfish time. This is like no negotiations. This is where you say, I am important. I matter. I'm worth it. I love myself enough to give me 30 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Once you make that commitment, the program's so simple. It's so simple. it's more of a lifestyle than a program, because I tell people it doesn't end. Even though you get to the end of 28 days, it doesn't mean you stop. This is stuff you do forever. And it's 15 minutes of movement with purpose. Okay. Fitness to improve some of your health markers, you know, and your well-being. Also get you feeling more confident about yourself, get you feeling more energized. And then you follow that up with 5 minutes of mindful meditation, followed by 10 minutes of focused personal development. So this means you're putting good inputs in, right? It could be watching a TED Talk. It could be listening to an amazing interview show like this. You know, whatever it is, you feed your mind with something positive every day for at least 10 minutes, you know, and that could be just reading an inspiring book. And we have plenty of opportunity to choose positive inputs, but we have to make the time and make it a priority for ourselves. And so that's it. That's 2%. And you do this for 28 days, man, you'll see massive shifts. And you know, I give the program away for free. My publisher doesn't like this, because she's like, well, you should be selling books. And I'm like, well, you know what? I do not want dollars and cents to get away from people living their best life, you know, bottom line. So we give it away. It's free. It's on my website. Go get it. Do it. You know,
guys. So if you're listening, really, you want to go out there and change your life and really bring so much more than just being fitness, being positive, being all these other things. He's giving you the guidelines. He's showing you the path. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? You're offering somebody an opportunity to actually change their life, which is what I love because again, I am so interested in people being proactive in change.
Mhm.
You know, because again, it's funny that when things start working out in your favor because you've been proactive in change, um, it's amazing what the universe does for you. It's amazing how even now there's been people who were proactive in changing their lives, changing their work styles, doing all these things before COVID-19, and now these are the people that are really blossoming in
Mhm.
this time of where people are having their heads down and trying to figure out life. There's people actually taking off, blossoming
Mhm.
there because they were already proactive in doing these things. And again, I tell everybody if you have the opportunity to learn something new, like what you're offering, you essentially, this is, if you don't take it just to even look into it, it's an opportunity.
Right.
When people ask about, well, I never got that opportunity. No, you weren't
Mhm.
listening for the right opportunities, and you weren't listening when somebody was sitting there telling you, here's an opportunity, go for it, right?
Mhm.
Because again, they get um, that mindset that they get in, feeling that they cannot step out of the boundaries of their own limitations. It's terrible. That some people, live their lives that way. That they go, I just can't imagine myself being somebody else. And I go, oh wow, that's
Mhm.
man, you're. And I tell her, and I try to all the times. People, I know a few people like this. Where I've mentioned, look, why don't you go find to do this if you want to change your life? Because you just literally living the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again, thinking that they're going to get a different result each time. And when they end up in the same spot, they're like, "What did I do wrong?" And I go, "Look, there's people like you out in the world who are kind of shining that light and sharing their message, sharing their. This is why I tell everybody your story, everybody's story, everybody's experiences mean something. And
Mhm.
I mean, have you ever thought about? I wonder if you've ever thought about this. How much impact you've made on other people's lives, somewhere that you came in contact 10 years ago that you don't even remember, that you've changed their lives, and they probably still think and talk about what they learned from you.
Yeah, it is awesome. I mean, it's a big reason. It's not the reason why we do what we do, but it's certainly something that our wife and I love to see happen. Because we see in people when unfortunately they may be in a place in life where they don't see that in themselves any longer.
Yeah,
Like it's become clouded based on other experiences that maybe weren't positive. And life can beat us down sometimes. I'm not here to deny that. Like Buddha talked about life as just suffering, and that was
exactly.
2,500 years ago.
Years
And
ago, right?
like we've seen this reference, this idea of suffering in life, but it's the way we handle suffering. This idea that we're always concerned about the things that we haven't done or the things that we did that we wish we didn't do, or we're thinking constantly about the things that we want to do, which we may never do, and what if this happens? So we're ping-ponging back and forth. Eckhart Tolle talks about this in The Power of Now, that we're always bouncing back and forth between the past and the future, but we're missing the present. We're missing, what are we doing right now? Who are we experiencing life with right now? Because happiness is actually just a result of something that we're doing. And to create more happiness, you got to be more present in the doing. And you have to be proactively doing something to create the opportunities to elevate your happiness, and
Yeah,
being aligned with your purpose, being clear on your core values. That's where the 5S originally originated from, was this idea that as I was getting clarity on my own life, and having these conversations with people that I was meeting, or just having the opportunity to talk to, you start to realize a lot of us have very similar core values. Not exactly the same, but we have similar ones. And I wanted to make it easy for people to sort of visualize this idea, and so I used an alliteration of the 5 Fs, but I also use a metaphor of a home. And so those that are listening to this, just play along with me here and visualize a home, a house, right? What's the house usually look like? Well, if you ask a kid to draw a house, they're going to draw a roof, maybe a little chimney on there. And then there's going to be 4 walls, right? A little box with a foundation that it's built on. And so if you take that idea of a home, you've got 4 walls, you've got a roof, and you have foundation. Well, I maintain that my life, the house that I want to build, which is my life, it needs a rock solid foundation. And for me, the foundation is health. Because when health is rock solid, you have a certain confidence and an ability to do the things that you most likely will need to do to accomplish the things you want to accomplish, or even just to sustain the journey,
There you go. Yes.
And the easiest way to remember this is think about the last time you had the flu. Just think about that. And did you get the man flu like I've had, where I'll lay on the couch, pull the covers up, ask my wife to make me some chicken noodle soup, and I'll watch Netflix all day? Okay. Like, was that what you had? But I didn't go to work that day. I didn't make my calls. It was debilitating. So now think about chronic illness, right? Think about chronic ailments based on us living a certain lifestyle that actually deteriorates that foundation. It's pretty hard to build a stable life when that's not solid. So the foundation's health. Now I got 4 walls, or you could call them pillars, and I like to use the F's because it's easy to visualize, but it's also easy to remember. Yeah. Family, fitness, faith, and finances. And it's got an overarching roof of fun, right? The happiness aspect, like to having joy and enjoyment in your life. And so these walls, family is very important to me, but family can also include relationships, those people that you have the closest bonds with, those relationships, those ideas of depositing bits of yourself into other people's lives, and they do the same in return, and you all elevate together. Yeah. So family, and then fitness. Well, fitness is one of my pillars. Why? Because I know if I take fitness seriously and I invest time in my own body and mind, my own well-being, that my health gets better. There's a direct correlation here. It's also very common that with relationships, you have positive relationships in your life, you will also be healthier. Okay. Like everything's connected. And this is the crazy thing when you start looking, and now science is even proving a lot of this in studies, but I'm not going to go down that path. I tell people, go look for all the published papers on this. You'll see there's a lot of proof backing this up, but I would say, look for your own proof, right? Like look for your own personal experience in this. And then that will bring it to a whole different level of wisdom. It goes knowledge to wisdom at that point. It's self-awareness, right? Now, so finances, we live in a global economy. We need to make money in order to do certain things. In our family, we decided we don't want to collect stuff, but we collect experiences. But we also knew that we need to make some money in order to do that as a family. Yeah. And so finances is also just being responsible and recognizing that we do live in this world. Don't fight it. Don't be ignorant. I'm not saying you have to fully embrace it, but be aware. Recognize what does that play in your life. And when you start thinking about the life you want to be living, what kind of money are you going to require to do that? Yeah. And start to make decisions around that. Instant gratification. I am guilty of this. I remember periods of my life racking up credit card debt. Why? Because I wanted to do certain things now. I want to go out for dinner. I want to have a night out with the guys. I'll put it on the plastic. I'll worry about paying that later. But I once heard someone say, well, all I was doing was mortgaging my future to pay for today. Yeah. And that always resonated with me. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so right. So, and then the last F is faith. Yeah. And this is hope, right? Like faith really is hope. It's that belief in something bigger than ourselves. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's just, when I reference that in the book, I let people know, for some people it's secular. It could be a religion-based faith. Mine's faith in humanity. Mine's faith in the world. It's the idea of making this place a better place while I'm here. So when I leave, I at least leave it better than it was when I got here. Yes. So it's that sort of global, all-encompassing idea of faith in humanity. And that's what gets me excited. And that gets me excited in that role. But again, I'm not here to be prescriptive and say this is what you have to believe in. I like to give the metaphor of a home, but I ask people, what's your foundation? What are your walls? What is your roof? You can use my 5 F's as an example. Maybe that resonates with you. Great. If it doesn't, that's great too. But figure out what is most important to you and then live into that, lean into it. Wake up in the morning, be conscious and aware and fully on board with living a life that thrives around those values.
Yes.
And I always joke with people and they're like, well, I don't really know what my core values are. Well, what's important to you right now? What are you passionate about? What is so important that you would make it a non-negotiable? I often hear people say, well, my family and my relationships with them. I often hear people say health, or their mental health. Like, we all have different things, but when you start to look at it, we share a lot of things in common. And we have more in common than I think we give ourselves credit to actually acknowledge.
Yeah.
And I just like to push the buttons a little bit there just to challenge people or invite them in times to just shift their perspective just a little bit. Because in doing that, we see things differently than we saw them before. And all of a sudden, gosh, sometimes all it takes is a fraction of a change or a shift. And what we believed to be not possible for ourselves previously is now possible. And all it is by just one little shift, maybe one person saying to you, you know what, good work on that. Oh my gosh, that was great. Way to go. Like, you see this in kids all the time, as a parent, it's like, we don't say negative things to them. We're positive. Why? Because it's going to help them.
Yeah.
There's enough negativity in life. They don't need any from me, and so it's really trying to foster that positive nature in all of us. And we can either be making positive deposits, or we can be making negative deposits. But man, the negative doesn't make me feel good. Doesn't make the person receiving it feel good. It doesn't help the situation. It's like complaining. I'm like, don't complain. And here I am. I'm complaining about complaining. Like, that's not good.
Right.
So, but I don't know. Does this resonate? Does this make sense? Yeah.
What a wonderful message. Yes. That everything that you're talking about, right? These are the things that I so value in my life. And, and I tell everybody at some point, you've had to lean on one of these things at some point in everybody's life. So they lean on one of these main F's, right? So at some point it's either family. I need family right now, or whether it's, hey, I need a night out. I need fun. So all these wonderful things that you're describing, I think they all resonate with us in at some point in our lives, and at some point they kind of all come together. And I love the fact that what you're talking about as far as with faith, with kind of with money, right? These are kind of really two things that can intimidate people. People get intimidated by money. They don't know how to handle it, because for a lot of people, they weren't taught financial literacy. They weren't taught, pretty simple, that the first thing they teach you in accounting is assets plus liabilities equals capital. So, if one of those things is out of balance, well, something's wrong, So try not to spend more than you make, that sort of thing. I think that's what a lot of the older generations knew, that they paid attention to it. So
one of the best books, and I always like to recommend this one, The Latte Factor by David Bach.
Oh, wow.
If people are looking for just a really good, simple book, but to help with financial literacy, what a great read. I mean, my teenage daughter read this, and it's interesting to see how she's been shifting the way she looks at money, the way she looks at spending things, like just even the conversation that we have. So it's a great book, and I highly recommend it. And anyways, as you brought that up, I just thought, oh, I gotta mention this.
Yeah, that's great. And that's awesome, because again, I think, just like what you're talking about, if you wanted to go out and have fun and do these things, you had to do finances to figure all this out. That is pretty important. And yet some people get so intimidated by the fact that, well, I don't have enough money to do this. I don't make enough money to do this. So they go rely on credit and, kind of like what you're talking about, spending more than what they make. So when the time comes to pay the bill, they're like, well, I don't have enough. Well, I get it that, that you want to live for the present, but that doesn't always, money doesn't work that way. Money doesn't work where, hey, let's just spend for today and not worry about tomorrow, because, who knows, right?
And you're right. And it comes down to just I think this idea of just the fear of the unknown influences a lot of us, right?
Yeah.
And because we're not aware of how money works, we will often choose to remain ignorant. We choose not to educate on it.
Yes.
And because it's easier to live in the moment and not think about the repercussion of our choices long term, because it is easier until it isn't, until it stacks up and we run into a situation where all of a sudden we don't have the work that we had.
Yes.
Bills are piling up. Like, I look at what the situation that's happening globally right now.
Yeah.
It's a challenging time for a lot of people right now.
And
And we have to wonder,
yeah.
and it's not an evil thing, but just, we can all be educated. There's so much great information. There's podcasts out there that are dedicated to this conversation. Just
Yes.
simply go and engage with that and start to learn. You don't
Yeah.
have to figure it out. You don't have to be an accountant. Like, just go learn the basics.
Same thing that what you're talking about fitness. You don't have to know everything to go get into start doing wanting to
That's
learn
right.
a fitter life. You just have to go at least go out there and try and learn, because that's how you're going to learn anything. Nobody wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning and knows, you know what, I know how to go. I know how to do my gym routine. Nobody knows that. You got to go learn that. You have to go learn to make the commitment. So, it's so funny that all five of these F's that we're talking about, again, like I said, if one of them is out of balance, it can really hinder some of the other ones. So we have to kind of, we usually end up depending on the other four when that one is out of whack. So like right now, like we're talking about, right? Financiers are out of whack for a lot of people. So they're depending on family and friends and faith to get them through this.
Mm-hmm.
And then when their finances are like skyrocketing again, and their work's coming and all these things are going, they're not depending so much on faith. And, they kind of, well, I've been so busy working, I don't do my family. I don't have as much fun. So I think you got to, again, it's that working that balance, make time we all have the same amount of time in every day. We all do. That's the one thing that we all have in common that we know for sure. You get up, I get up, no matter what time we get up, we all have the same amount of seconds, whether we're asleep or awake. So what we do with it and how we apply it to our everyday lives, I think that's pretty important. So again, and let me just give a couple of shout outs to a few people who have been watching and let's see, KD was here.
Oh, am I still going? Am I still live? Maybe I'm live now. Maybe I would give the shout outs, but I can't see anybody. But I'm hoping Gabriel will be right back.
I'm sorry, I
lost him. Oh, there he is. He's back. All right. Yay.
I did that myself. So I was trying to pull up the comment and I hit the wrong button. So Katie was just saying, this is Kenny from Sugarland. Hey, great topic. And then I've had a lot of people commenting on LinkedIn. So that's the only bad thing about this LinkedIn. You can't pull up the comments. But Kenyatta was saying hello from Arizona. She's like, thank you. Nice to meet you, Dai. Somebody we both know, Christine Gold.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so she's telling us hello, loving the show. And then, of course, Lori Knutson, she's actually been on my show as well. She's just saying hi from Charlotte and loving the conversation. So thank you guys for following along. And then there's so many other people. Rodrigo, thank you again. There's so many. Diana, wow. Andy Vargo, Wendy, Rob Alassis, thank you. Leo, Marissa. There's so many people. I usually like to at least give a shout out to some of these people, because if I said hello to everybody, we'd be probably talking a little bit more and more all the comments. But again, but thank you, Dai. That was I love your message, and let's go ahead and give a shout outs to your website. So where can people go to kind of find some of your websites? I know we have them up, but I know that you have quite a bit, which is pretty impressive to me. So you
learn how to spell my name, you'll find me. That's the way I always like to put it. Because it's a cool thing about having a unique name. Dai is Welsh for David, Manuel is Portuguese, so I am a bit of a mix. But the nice thing is, once you spell it, and I'm on every social platform, and the thing is, I just have my name. That's all it is. And also my website, daimanuel.com. So if you go to any of those, you'll find me. But I usually tell people I'm most active on Facebook and Instagram. So that's the easiest place to reach out if you want to have a conversation. And just please send me questions. I'm happy with that. I've on my website, I have over 1,500 articles that I've written over the last 14 years. Tons of free resources, or just dive in, like take it upon yourself to maybe look at how you're investing some of your time. And it's like, well, what do I want to see change in my life? Once you answer that question yourself, well, then I invite you, just do one thing every day that facilitates that change. That's it.
So, awesome.
That's all you got to do.
So have you been doing like any kind of, I know since COVID-19's hit, it's hard to do like one-on-one coaching, being up close and personal. Have you been doing like any online courses or any online classes sort of thing to kind of help people stay physically fit and that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, I definitely continuously invite people to participate in the Whole Life Fitness Manifesto. So, same thing my book's based on, and opt in for that, because it's a 28-day sequence of emails. Plus there's a Facebook private community, and it's all free. My wife and I do the video with you every morning. So we're doing a 15-minute workout with people and often lead them through meditation. So it's just there's really, we've tried to cut down all barriers of entry. We made it so accessible, and we removed price from the equation. So people would be like, okay, what is my excuse? There aren't any. And it's like, just make it happen.
I need to go sign up today, and need to start following along on Monday. So awesome. I love that, because I love that part about being able to incorporate these things into my life. I never get enough of it. I do meditations, I do affirmations, I do all these things, but I think you can never get enough. I think it's even better when you share it in community, when you share it with fellowship, because you get the positive encouragement, people wanting to kind of cheer you on your journey. So I love that fact that you can do that, and that you do that now, and you've taken a lot of the barriers out of the way. So guys, if you have not connected with Dai, check him out. He is on all social media channels, and man, I don't know what else to say, but I'm impressed.
There you go. There's the book. It's on Amazon. It's at Barnes and Nobles. If you're in Canada, it's at Chapters. So if you did want to buy a book, go ahead, but you don't need to.
Yeah,
it's one of those things. I better say that. Else my publisher
so there you go. Look, there's the both of you. Look it out. Check it out live. Two Dais. Awesome. So that's awesome, though. So I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to, kind of coach people. This is usually the last question I ask everybody. You kind of answered it already, but I always do ask anyway. And that's, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind whenever all is said and done and the book's written on you, and you're no longer here, but your message and everything else is? So what do you want to leave behind that you want to share with the world?
If there's one thing I can leave behind, it's that I lived a good life, and I inspired people to live a good life. Like, that's it. Like, it's simple,
right? I think sometimes that's the most beauty in it, is having the simple answer. You don't, again, people are going to find your stories and find these things later on in life, even though you're not here, right? So this is what I tell everybody. Go out there and be creative. Go out there and share who you are. Do these things that you've always wanted to do. Because again, if you're worried about making the immediate impact, that's the problem with a lot of society. They want instant gratification. Impact doesn't have to happen right away. Impact can happen 20 years down the road, 50 years down the road, 100 years down the road. Like you said, here we are, we're still quoting Buddha. And again, what kind of impact has he made on people? And how long has he been gone from the earth? So impact doesn't have to happen overnight. Impact can last now. So that's why I always ask people what legacy you want to leave behind and that sort of thing. So that's awesome, Dai. Man, I appreciate it so much, guys. And then everybody that's been following along, go check him out on social media. Check it out. It's Dai Manuel you can find him on Instagram, Facebook,
everywhere.
LinkedIn. He is everywhere. So just go check him out and then go to the website. It's www.daimanuel.com. And you can go find, of course, his books. Go to Amazon and just type in the name Dai Manuel, and then you will be able to find a lot of his stuff. And again, he's telling you guys he's opening up a lot of the things free, so price is no longer the issue. It's just yourself really applying it. So thank you, Dai, so much for joining me this evening. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you, everybody, for coming along. Shabath, Kenyatta, Christina, Lori, everybody else who's been here. Thank you guys so much. And that's going to wrap up another week for me. I will be back Monday evening with my guest, Vicki O'Neill. She hosts a podcast called Connect the Dots, but she also does so much more. And we will jump into more about what she loves to share and why she does what she does. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Dai, again for coming on the show. I do appreciate it, guys. Have a great evening. I'll talk to you again Monday, 7 o'clock. Bye-bye for now. Stay safe. Practice good social distancing. I know things are reopening up in a lot of states and places, so just be cautious out there. That's all I say, because again, we don't know what's going to happen. We are still living in the unknown time, so just stay safe, protect yourself, and God bless, man. Thank you, Dai. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you again. All right, guys. I'll see you again Monday. Bye-bye for now.